Well, today on All Have Another, we have Hayden Hawks on the show. Welcome to the show, Hayden.
Hey, thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, I'm really excited to be on the podcast. I've listened to your podcast actually quite often, and so does my wife. We listen to it. Both of us listen to it a lot.
Well, that means a lot to me. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What has your morning of training looked like today?
Well, I just barely actually got done with a workout in a snowstorm here in Cedar City, Utah. So we live at about 6,000 feet elevation, and woke up this morning thinking it was going to be a nice sunny day, and there was a snowstorm. And so had to go outside and get my work done anyways, and had a nice little 40-minute tempo session out on the trails. And ended up being a good workout, but it was definitely cold and definitely really windy.
What does that look like? Like, how much do you have to slow down because of those conditions?
Well, as a trail runner, I mostly base stuff off of effort, just because most of my runs are on trails. It's rolling, a lot of uphill workouts, different things like that. And of course, you can't really base stuff off of pace because, marathon pace or tempo pace is going to look a lot different on a flat road than it is on a big mountain or a single track trail. And so, yeah, I just based it off of effort today. Just 20 minutes moderate effort, and then went down to about 20 minutes at marathon pace effort, maybe a little bit faster than that. And so maybe with the conditions, it slowed it down a little bit, but the effort was there, and that's what matters to me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like even if you're training for marathons, people should be running based on effort, right?
Oh, for sure. I coach quite a bit of people, and as a coach, that's what I always preach is base everything off of effort. Pace, yes, while it can be important, it's really hard to control pace all the time, especially with elements or wind or whatever you're dealing with. And so I think effort is definitely the most important thing to base it off of. And most of the time, if you run off of effort, you end up running a great workout, or you end up even setting PRs in races a lot of the time.
Yeah. Can you give us a little advice on how to become a better hill runner? I recently moved to a very hilly for me, not hilly for you, but hilly for me area. And man, I am struggling on these hills.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a track and field background where in college, we only ran flat. Like we would pick the flattest routes possible. And then when I became a trail runner and a mountain runner, I learned to embrace the hills is most important. I think that, you have to love it. You have to love to climb, and you have to find joy in it. You have to look at it as like I don't know, like I look at it like this, like I look at it as a challenge. Like, and when I accomplish that, when I reach the top of a mountain, or when I reach the top of a hill, or crush a hill repeat workout, I find so much joy in that, and I use it as a confidence builder. And I just think to myself, like, wow, I just did that. That was an amazing accomplishment, and it's going to make me a better runner. And so you have to embrace it, and you have to find joy in it.
I love that. You have to find joy in it. Okay. So when it hurts, everybody just like look for the joy. Look for the joy. That's why we do
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah, it's fun to hurt. I mean, I personally think it's kind of fun to hurt. Like, it pushes you, it makes you a better person, it makes you a better athlete. You learn more in those really hard moments when you're hurting than any other time. Like easy days, yeah, they're fun and everything, especially when you're running with some friends and whatnot. But you learn so much and you grow so much in those hard moments in workouts or races or whatever it is. And honestly, that's what I love about hills is hills are hard, and I've grown and learned so much because of I've learned to embrace the mountains and the hills.
It's so interesting because people who don't run, when they hear even, like an everyday runner like myself talk about running and how good it feels, it sounds a little crazy to them. And then for the everyday runner like me to hear you say, like, I love it when it hurts, it's like, is that a certain breed? How do we embrace that hurt? I think that's a lesson we could all learn from and also become a lot faster if we would embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as endurance athletes, we all are maybe a little crazy. We maybe have something in our brain that just like loves pain, loves, just pushing ourselves. Maybe we're not quite to the level as an Alex Honnold or a Marc-Andre Lafleur. You might have seen the new Alpinist movie. But I think there's a little bit of that in all of us as endurance athletes. Especially, I know, especially me as an ultra runner, there's definitely there's that in my mind where I actually love pain. I love pushing myself. I love going hard. And honestly, I don't think I could live without that.
Listen, you might be really good at childbirth.
I don't know about that. I've been at the childbirth of two of my children so far, and I've seen my wife do it. And man, I respect her so much. I mean, I don't think I could have went through that personally.
It's I do remember the first or the second baby, because my first baby was a C-section. I do remember my second baby saying, marathons really aren't that hard compared to what just went down.
Yeah, that's what my wife said. My wife's like, after she had our second baby, she did it all natural actually. And she was like, I can accomplish anything now. And I was like, yes, you can.
Yes, you can. Talk to us about your wife. When did you guys meet?
We met in college. So we both attended Southern Utah University. We both were on the cross country track and field team here in Cedar City, Utah. And yeah, we met on the team. It was pretty cool because at the time she was the number one girl on the team, the top girl on the team, and I was the top guy on the team. And we started dating. We met at camp actually. We did this little summer camp every year. We went up to like altitude at 10,000 feet and stayed up there for a week or two. And we met there in the hot tub at camp. And I was like, she's pretty cute. And by the time camp ended, I asked her on a date, and we just kind of dated throughout college and then got married towards the end of college. And yeah, I mean, it was an awesome, 4 years or 5 years, I guess, with a redshirt year running at Southern Utah University, and being able to share a lot of moments and travel with my wife was just amazing. And I definitely am the ultra runner. I'm the runner. I'm the person, the man I am today because of her. I mean, she's definitely my strength and helps me so much in every aspect of life.
Yeah, that is so cool. What a love story. The number one runners on the team. How cute. Um, when you decided you wanted to get in the mountains, did she start running in the mountains too at that point?
Yeah, kind of. At first she didn't really embrace the trails as much as I did. I grew up in St. George, Utah, near Zion National Park, near a lot of national parks. Grand Canyon was only a couple hours away. And so as a kid, I was always out on the trails, either hiking or camping or running or doing something on the trails. I did a lot of mountain biking when I was younger too. And I loved being outdoors. I loved being on the trails. And so I think kind of growing up that way after college, it made me embrace the trails because I was like, well, I can put two of my passions together. I can put the outdoors and running together, right? And my wife, she wanted to kind of go more of the road route. And so she tried some road marathons at first. I think what happened is she went on a trail run with me one time just out of college, and she ended up falling and smashing her face into a rock and breaking her front teeth, like her two front teeth.
Oh
And she had
gosh.
to get her teeth all fixed and everything.
Ugh.
And so that was kind of a traumatic experience where she's like, I don't know if I'm cut out to be a trail runner. And then as she went to a lot of my races, she traveled across the ocean over to Europe with me and seen these races and had these experiences. She was like, well, maybe I want to get into it. And so she started getting into it a little bit. And she actually was really, really good. She got better, technically. And she ended up winning the US 50-mile champs in 2019, right before we had our second kid here. And yeah, now we both run trails, and I think we both really enjoy running on the trails.
Wow, that is legit for sure. If she won that. Jeez. Um, talk to us about your first like trail race that you won, Speedgoat 50K. I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of a big deal that you like, I'm going to debut and then I'm just going to go ahead and win as well.
yeah. It was definitely an experience. Let's just say that. Lots of highs, lots of lows, but I ended up coming out with the victory. I ended up, many people probably have heard this story. It's kind of what got me started in the sport, but I signed up on a whim, signed up the day before. I'd ran a trail race, the U.S. Mountain running championships out in New Hampshire a few weeks before, which was only 10 kilometers, and loved it, absolutely loved it. And then I had a friend who was running Speedgoat 50K, and he invited me to go do it with him. And I told him no. I was like, that's just too long. I'm not ready for 50K yet. That 10K was hard enough. And then I just got this feeling like the day before the race, I was sitting there. I just kept getting this feeling like, Hayden, you need to do this race. Like, you're ready for it. You've done some long runs. Like, this would be a lot of fun. Like, you should just go up and do it. So I called him up and was like, hey, man, can you get me in? He talked to the race director. Luckily, the race director got me in. Like, he usually doesn't do that, but especially because it's considered one of the hardest races in the world, the hardest 50K in North America. And I went up and I was like, I'm just going to go out and have some fun. Like, I get to go run in the mountain for hours. Like, how is that not going to be fun? And I went out there. I took the lead from the start, just kept pushing on these guys who at the time I didn't know who they were, but they were some of the best ultra runners in the US at the time. And I ended up coming away with the victory, and it was definitely a special day for me, but it was a really hard day. I remember bonking really hard the last like 3 or 4 miles and barely scraped out the win, but I got the victory, and that's what kind of started my ultra running career. And I just fell in love with ultra running after that.
So your lead was big enough that but if you had a couple more miles, because I'm thinking these guys, if they were big names in the ultra running scene, they were probably thinking, what is this rookie doing going out taking the lead right at the start? We'll catch him.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that took second, Alex Nichols from Colorado, I mean, he's been second at Western States 100. Like, he's a legit, contender on the trails. And yeah, he's a really good downhill runner too. And at the time, I was not good at downhill. I mean, I was coming from the track and the road. Like, I had no downhill experience. But I was a really good climber just because I had so much fitness, left over from track, that my engine was so big that I could climb really, really good. And so I had a big enough lead by the time we got to the top of the climbs. I think I ended up breaking like the record for the first climb to the top. And my lead was big enough that I was able to hold him off on the descent, luckily. I mean, if it would have been a few more miles, I think I only won by 2 minutes, but I've since become a lot better downhill runner. And but at the time I was literally walking down the downhill just because I was so nervous. But yeah, it taught me that, anybody can really get into this sport if they want to. It just takes time. It takes experience. I mean, if you don't think you're a good downhill runner, like, just go get on the trails more and you'll become a good downhill runner. I won Speedgoat 50K as a horrible downhill runner. But now I'm a pretty good downhill runner, and it just takes time and experience. And if you really want it, I mean, you can accomplish anything.
Well, I was going to say, like, what makes you a good downhill runner? Is it just the experience because it feels dangerous and scary at first?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything, right? If you jump on a mountain bike and try to go downhill, you're probably going to be a little nervous because you're afraid of crashing, you're afraid of hurting yourself. It's the same thing, especially on these really technical downhill stuff. Like you got to realize, like, Speedgoat 50K is pretty technical, especially that last descent. I mean, it's really rocky. And that's not even the most technical. I mean, you go and do sky running races out in Europe, and you're literally running down ridge lines where one little step, you fall off a cliff and you could die, and it's, but that's part of the sport, and it's part of the sport that I love. But you just have to get confidence is the most important thing. And you have to get that fear out of your head. Like, if I fall, like, probably scrape myself up a little bit, might have to get some stitches, but I'm probably not going to die. And so, like, what I'm just going to go and push it. And you have to, you have to get used to your foot placement. You have to get coordinated. I mean, there's a lot of little elements, but I think the biggest thing is getting rid of that fear when you're descending.
Probably not going to die. Yeah. I love it. I've talked to Brittany Peterson on the podcast before about sky racing a little bit. What do you love about sky racing?
I mean, the cool thing about any trail race is, I mean, the places that we get to see. I mean, when you're running on ridge lines in the Alps in Italy or France, you know, you're running up in Norway on some of these ridge lines. I mean, it's beautiful. It's amazing. Especially a lot of these races start in the morning. You get up there right when the sun's coming up. I mean, it's breathtaking. It really is. But I also like that, you know, with road running, it's really fun, and I still do some road running. I do still do some track racing, not racing, but workouts. But I would say like it's very controlled. You know, like it's all about your fitness a lot of the time, and how fit you are is how good you're going to do. But with trail running, and sky running in particular, there's a lot of other elements that you have to control and you have to train. I mean, you have to train the technicality aspect, the nutrition aspect, because you're out there a lot longer. You know, there's all these other key elements that you have to train and that you have to try to control. And of course, you're not going to be able to control everything. Like it's just impossible. But you do your best, and I kind of like that. It's like a big puzzle. It's like a math problem that you're trying to, you know, solve. And that's what's really cool about trail running and sky running, and there's a lot more things that you have to train and try to control.
What do you do when you're in the middle of like a real technical race and a piece of the puzzle is like not working out in your favor? Like, what do you do mentally to get yourself in the right place?
I mean, that happens all the time. It really does. You just have to, again, you have to embrace it, and you have to, you know, I usually have an A plan, I have a B plan, I have a C plan. Like, okay, I've done this enough times, I have enough experience, I've dealt with all this in training, because my long runs, you know, a lot of my long runs, I will try to mimic the race, like try to on similar terrain, the pack that I'm going to wear, the nutrition I'm going to use, all the gear, everything. So that way I know, like, okay, if something were to go wrong, I have a B or a C plan that I can get out of it. And I think the biggest thing too is just to not freak out, you know, not be dramatic. Just stay calm, because there's always a way out of it. You just have to think for a second and try to, you know, come up with a new plan. And you can always usually get out of it as long as you stay calm and relaxed, and you just kind of stay in the moment.
I think that's really good advice for life in general. like don't be dramatic about a situation that it comes up, because I oftentimes do that with like health related stuff. I freak out. And it's like, don't be dramatic. Just like let's figure out this puzzle and take a step back. I love that advice. Um
Yeah, and I think a lot of trail runners are very calm people.
mm,
You know, they're pretty free spirited people.
mm,
They just like being outdoors. They don't mind being alone. You know I'm that way. I'm pretty calm. You know, and it's just that's how I live, and that's my lifestyle. And it rolls over to the trails really, really well. You know, you look at some of the greats in the sport, like Courtney Dauwalter and Francois Dehane and Kilian Jornet. They're very calm presence to be
mhm.
around. You know, they're very positive people. And I think that's a strength, especially in ultra running.
Yeah. I haven't talked to the other two that you mentioned, but I've talked to Courtney a few times, and yeah, she's very like chill. And when you're talking to her, you're almost like, I cannot believe you can do the things that you can do based on how chill you are right now. But that's probably why she can do it.
Yeah, I think when you're calm, when you can compartmentalize,
Mm,
you can, you know, focus on the moment at hand, you can really dig deep inside your mind, and you can really, you know, find solutions out of problems. You can push yourself really hard. A lot of the great athletes, not just in our sport, are like that. You know, I've been watching this documentary called Man in the Arena about Tom Brady, which is on
mm,
Hulu. And, you know, Tom Brady is definitely an athlete that I look up to, just his long career that he's had, and his success. And that's one thing he talks about, and his teammates about it in the documentary, is how he can compartmentalize better than anybody they know. He focuses on one game at a time. He stays in the moment. It's hard to, like, you know, make him flustered. Like he just is very calm, and he's very controlled. And I think that's something you have to have as an elite athlete if you want to be one of the greats.
It's funny that you brought up Tom Brady because my husband and I were talking about him. I feel like we talk about him too much, actually, but we were talking about him the other day, and I was like, what if we ate like Tom Brady for like a month? Because he follows this like very strict diet, like very strict anti-inflammatory diet. It's kind of a weird diet, but I'm like, I wonder how much that really plays into how long he's been able to do this sport, like how perfectly he curates his food. I mean, he clearly has like a chef that's probably making all of his meals. But then we looked up what he eats, and I was like, oh no. Oh no, I don't think I want to try to do this for 5 days, let alone a month.
Yeah, I mean, he's doing all the little things though, and I think that's what it takes to have a long career. He really is dialed in. He's focused. I mean, that works for him, and it's not to say that's going to work for everybody. There's different things that work for everybody. But like, I think there are key elements that you need to look at, and you'd be like, it's not always about training hard. It's about training smart and doing what works for you. And if you're able to do that, and you're able to really dial in those things and really find out what works for you, you can stay healthy. You can have a long career, and you can have a lot of success.
Yeah, talk to us about how much time you spend on like the recovery aspect and how much detail you pay attention to making sure that you're refueling your body with food that's going to make sure that you're able to do what you set out to do.
Yeah, I train really hard, and I've always said this, that there's no such thing as overtraining. It's only under fueling.
Mm.
And so I focus a lot on fueling, because if I'm going to train as hard as I do and try to put in all this time and this effort, I need to be fueling my body. I need to be replacing what's getting, put out. And so I focus a lot on that. I eat a ton. I hydrate constantly throughout the day. I'm doing all the little things every day. I have kind of a routine that I go through every day. Sometimes that includes my sauna, using my sauna often, because that's a great way to aid in recovery and relaxation. Sometimes I meditate while I'm in the sauna because it helps me get into this mental space as well. I use my recovery boots every day.
Mm.
I'm doing proper warm-ups before I do runs. I'm making sure I get in the proper carbohydrates and proteins after runs to aid in recovery. I'm not perfect, but I have this kind of routine that I do, and it's just kind of become a habit where I've done it for so many years that it's worked. It's really helped me. It helps me recover faster. It helps me to hit the workouts when I need to, and I've been able to stay relatively healthy for most of my career because of that. And so I think it's you have to do the little things, and you have to find time to do those things. I plan it out every single night before I go to bed, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I make sure I get those things in because I want a long career. And, if you're not doing the little things, it's going to be really hard to accomplish the big things.
Um, you're a father of two. How's the sleep situation going?
Like I said before, luckily I have an amazing wife who
Oh.
really supports me and helps me. And she's kind of maybe taken a little bit of step back in her career
Mm.
to help me, just because we've realized that like it's really hard to have two really high end professional athletes in the home. One person always has to maybe take a little bit of a step back, and she wanted to. I mean, she chose to do that, and she said, "I want to help support you in your career," which I'm very, very grateful for. I support her in her goals and things that she wants to accomplish too, and we work really good together. I feel like we're best friends. We mesh really well together. So she probably takes a lot of the load, at night with the kids. But luckily too, we've had really good kids that sleep through the night, and so we've been able to get good sleep. And that's one thing that I do actually prioritize is sleep. Sometimes I'll push a workout back in the morning just an hour or two if I feel like I need an extra hour of sleep, just because I think sleep is one of the most important elements of recovery. It's, sleep is where you really get the gains, because you break your body down with the workouts and the training, and in sleep is where it rebuilds itself, and it rebuilds itself even stronger. And so if you don't get the proper sleep, if you're not getting the proper rest, you're never going to rebuild, and you're never going to get stronger. You're just going to continue to break your body down. And so I do prioritize my rest and my recovery when I need to, and make sure that's an important part of my training program.
Okay, so you ran Speedgoat. What was that? 2016.
Yes, yeah, 2016.
Okay, and so when did your first child come?
2017.
Okay.
Yeah, August of 2017. So right before I ran CCC 100K, like 2 weeks before we had our first child.
Were you nervous to go over there? Like, what if she goes into labor early?
Yeah, we were kind of going back and forth on that. I had a plan B, like I was going to cancel my trip, and
Oh,
if she was late. Of course, I want to be there for the birth of my child. Like that's way more important than any race. But I luckily it worked out to where she had the baby. We live close to family, so her mom was able to come help her after
oh,
the
she
the
had
baby.
baby, and then you went 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
backwards. I was
it was
thinking two
two
weeks
weeks
before.
after.
Got it.
The race was 2 weeks after, so luckily she had him on time, and I was able to go out and do really well at CCC that year.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you had a couple weeks before you headed over. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I was totally backwards
Yeah,
on that. Yeah, you won, right?
yeah.
Kind of a
I
good
won.
year.
Yeah, it was a really great race, and but this is the funny thing with it, Lindsay, is the training wasn't optimal
Mm.
going into it because I mean my wife was pregnant. I had to stay close to home. A lot of my runs ended up actually being on the flat like terrain where we were living because we were living in St. George at the time, and there's not a lot of mountain access in St. George. It's more desert terrain. And so I wasn't able to do a lot of runs in the mountains and get a lot of vert. I was mostly just focused on getting quality in, and my mileage wasn't great. My vert wasn't great, but I was able to go out there and still win the race. And if you look at it, you'd be like, how did he win off of that training? But I think I learned at that moment that training's never going to be perfect, but
Mm.
sometimes you just do the best that you can, and you stay confident in what you can do, and you let that give you confidence. And if you have that confidence going into a race, you can accomplish great things.
So, I mean, that way you were like fairly early on and like you're super competitive ultra running then, and you knew your training wasn't like spot on. How did you not let that get to you? I mean, now you know. You know what I mean? You know what you know now because of the experiences you've had. But at the time, how did you believe that?
Yeah, I mean, it was my first 100K actually. It was the first 100K I'd ever done. Luckily, I'd raced in Europe twice before that. I'd raced a 50K and a 50 miler. That's the spring before CCC. Didn't do very well. Actually, did terrible. And so I was a little nervous going into CCC. I was like, can I do this? It's my first 100K. Like the other two times I've raced in Europe, I've done terrible. Like I don't know what's going to happen. But I think also like there's strength in kind of being blind to it,
Mm-hmm.
not knowing what to expect, with it being my debut. I didn't know what to expect. All I knew is that I was going to go out there, run hard, do the best that I could do, and that's all that I could do. And luckily that worked out for me. But yeah, I mean, I can't say that I was completely confident, but I think at the time I had enough confidence, and I also kind of had that blind blind confidence going into it that helped a ton.
Okay, so what's your sweet spot? Is the 100K now your sweet spot?
Yeah, I would say 100K. I'd say 50 mile, 80K to 100K is definitely my sweet spot. That's the races I enjoy the most at
Mm.
the present time. But that being said, like I want to be a good 100-mile runner, and but there's a learning curve. Every step you take, from 50K to 100K, from 100K to 100 mile, there's a learning curve. And so I'm in that learning curve
Mm.
process right now where I'm trying to learn exactly how to master these 100 milers. And I'll be honest with you, that motivates me and inspires me more than anything, because it's a challenge, and I've never backed down from a challenge, and I definitely want to learn how to be a good 100-mile runner, but I would say I'm pretty confident and pretty good at the 80K to 100K distance.
Okay, let's talk about the 100-mile distance. You've started 2, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so you started 1. What one was that? The first one.
Yeah, UTMB. So I went all in on the biggest one at first.
Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened there.
I DNF'd halfway through at 50 miles. I just wasn't prepared. I
Mm.
wasn't in a good mental headspace.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like enjoy it at the time. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I maybe was just not. I wasn't in a good mindset, I would say, going into it. And yeah, I just had a really bad go through the night because the race starts late at night, and you go through the night, you run through the night, and you finish the next day. And I went through the night, and just the whole night I was like, why am I here? I
Mm.
don't even want to be here. I want to be home. I want to be sleeping. I don't want to be doing this. So when I got to 50 miles, I just gave up and was like, this is not going to happen. But honestly, looking back on that, that was a turning point in my career. I've learned more from the hard races than the good races. And that race really has taught me so much of what I need to do to prepare, how I need to prepare for the demands of each race, what type of training I need to do, and what I want to do and what inspires me. And, it's even though I DNF'd and at the moment I wasn't enjoying it, it motivates me more than anything to go back to that race and to show myself that I can accomplish it. And I look at that as a turning point in my career.
Well, and I just feel like it's important to like bring that up because of all of the accomplishments you have had since then. And sometimes people don't see the DNF at UTMB. Like if someone just started following your career like a year ago or 2 years ago, and the fact that you can learn so much from those big races that didn't go so well.
Yeah, I've actually been more consistent in my career since that race than before that race. Like I've been very consistent, I feel, the last few years,
Mm-hmm.
since that race happened. And I think it was because of that race, because I learned from that race that I wasn't training for the demands. I wasn't focused on the things that I needed to be doing. I was so focused on training hard, but not training smart
Mm.
and doing the little things that it takes to win these big ultras. And since then, I've started to do that. I focus on the demands. Every run I do, every workout I do has purpose now, and it's geared around the next race that I'm running and how each demand of that race is going to be met. And so as I've done that since UTMB DNF, I've been very consistent and I've had a lot of success in the races that I've done.
Let's talk about what you're racing this year. I saw you post your schedule and you said that you were taking a less is more approach with the schedule. So, talk to us about this first race coming up, the Coastal Challenge in Costa Rica. That's pretty soon.
Yes, next week.
Stage race,
So
too. What's the like? Tell us about the stage race. What does that consist of?
yeah. So I did this race before actually in 2019, and I took second. And so I'm kind of wanting to go back and win it, get a little revenge on it. I wasn't ready. Again, this was before UTMB and everything. I wasn't ready for the demands of the heat of Costa Rica. It's really hot. I mean, every day you're running in extremely hot, muggy, humid, temperatures, and then you're sleeping at night in a tent in the same temperatures because it doesn't cool down
Oh
because
gosh.
it's just very humid. And so you're just dealing with heat, nonstop for a week straight. And so every day with a stage race, every day you run a certain distance. And then, you finish that day, you pretty much you get some food and you go straight to bed and
Mm,
try to recover as much as possible for the next day and the next day and the next day. And it goes on for 6 days straight. And then the combined time
mm.
over those 6 days wins the race. And so there's a lot of like little strategies people use. Sometimes they go really hard on day one and try to get like a big time gap, and then they try to keep it controlled the rest of the week so that they can just kind of win off of that first race, that first day. But you're racing fairly hard every day. For me, I'm using it, yes, as a race. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to push and I'm going to try to win the thing. But I'm also using it as a great training week to prepare me for an even bigger race that's 3 weeks after Transgran Canaria, which is in Spain. It's a 128-kilometer race on the island of Gran Canaria in Spain. And so I'm using it in a few ways, like training, yes, for the volume, for the vert that I'm going to get at Costa Rica, but also the heat, because Transgran Canaria is hot. And then I'm doing Western States again in June, and that's going to be really hot. And so I'm hoping I can learn a lot about how to manage the heat and how to hydrate properly and fuel properly during this week training race in Costa Rica. And so that'll be my first race of the year. And yes, it's next week. And so I did a workout in the snow today, and I'll be in Costa Rica next week running in some really hot temperatures.
Have you talked to do you talk to people about the heat training? I followed Sally McRae pretty closely when she won Badwater, this year, and heard her talking about like the different things she did to acclimate to being ready to work really hard in the heat. What are your strategies with that?
Yeah, I mean, a few things. Getting experience in the heat, racing in the heat. That's why I picked Costa Rica. That's why I picked Transgran Canaria, because they're really hot races. I'm hoping that those races will help me for Western States, because Western States is, of course, really hot in June. And so I'm just trying to get experience. The more experience is always better. The other thing I do is I have a heat protocol that I go through 2 weeks before each race. Because really it takes about 2 weeks to adapt to the heat. You don't want to be doing it the entire block, because you'll just drain yourself. You'll completely destroy yourself. While I do get in the sauna, 2 or 3 days a week during the whole block, when I go into my heat protocol 2 weeks before a hot race, I'm in the sauna every day. And then I do a lot of indoor training too, especially if it's winter right now, here in Utah. And so it's cold, it's snowy. And so I'll do some indoor training. I'll get on the treadmill. I'll turn on some space heaters. I'll get on my bike indoors and I'll just sweat. And then right after I do those sessions, I'll jump straight into the sauna. So I'm doing, an hour to 2 hours of just good heat, sweating, and getting used to just managing myself. The other thing that I've done is hydration, focusing on my hydration, which has been a problem for me with heat in the past. I just wasn't hydrating enough, and I wasn't doing the right type of hydration. And so what I ended up doing a couple weeks ago, I went down to California and I got a sweat test done at a lab down in California. So I know exactly how much sodium I need to be putting into my system. I know exactly what my sweat rate is. And so I'm able to focus on that. And I work on that every day in training, especially in workouts and long runs, making sure that I'm getting that hydration in, and I'm getting my gut and my mind and everything trained to take in that type of hydration.
Man, you can't mess that up. At the level you're training, you put in all of this, you dedicate your life to this. You can't mess that hydration up. Are you a heavy sweater? Are you a medium sweater? I've learned a little bit about sweat tests.
I'm actually a low sweater,
okay.
but I'm a moderate sodium output, I guess.
Okay.
And so I have to make sure I'm getting the right amount of sodium per liquid, just because I don't sweat a lot. So it's not like I need to be putting a ton in, but I need to have the right concentration.
Yeah.
Because you have to have that balance with sodium and water.
Yeah. It's kind of like at some point, I don't know what level, you need to be at to take this serious enough, but it's if you're going to put so much into a sport, even if you're doing this at an everyday runner kind of level, but you want to test your limits to the best possible, at the best possible way, I think that everybody should figure that out, because we're all so unique. I mean, it's and it could really mess up your race if your sodium's off.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a true pro. I go all in. I've done that my whole life, and I'm a professional. And if I'm going to be professional, I need to do everything it takes. And if I have a problem, which I have had issues with hydration in the past, it came to hurt me at, like I said, Coastal Challenge a few years ago, Trans Gran Canaria, which I've done before. I had issues with hydration there a couple years ago, and I had issues at Western States last year with hydration. So finally, after the third time, I was like, I need to do something about this. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
pro. I talk about going all in. I talk about training smart. Well, I need to go get a sweat test. I need to be working on this because that's the element that's destroying these races. It's not that I'm not fit. I'm completely fit going into these races. It's just that my hydration's off. And, especially in these long events, you look at like Ironman athletes too, like with Kona's really, really hot. You get off on your hydration at all, it can destroy your race. And especially when you're out there for 15, 20 hours, whatever it is, or you're doing multi-day stuff, you have to get the hydration down, because not only does it help with, the in-race stuff, but it helps with the recovery
Mm-hmm.
after as well. And so I've really focused on that this year, and I think it's going to be great, going into this new year of racing.
That's really exciting because I Western States last year. So you think the sodium was a big problem with the race?
Yeah, it was just the hydration in general.
Hydration.
Yes, my levels were not where they should have been, but also with the sodium, but also I just wasn't taking enough
Mm.
water in. I didn't take into account the heat. Like I was like, oh, I'm a light sweater, I can just drink this much. But then when it's 115 degrees outside and you're in a canyon, next to a river, so it's a little humid and you're sweating a ton and it's really hot, like you have to adapt that a little bit, right? And I just didn't train enough for that with the hydration. And I got kind of cocky and was
Mm.
like, I'm just gonna not carry water with me. Like I'm not gonna carry an extra bottle because it's gonna weigh me down, when I should have carried the extra bottle, because it ended up destroying my race. And yes, like while I did really well for 92 miles. I mean, I was in second place for 92 miles,
Oh gosh.
feeling really strong, running against Jim Walmsley, who's considered the best ever on the Western States course. I was like, second place finish to Jim on my debut,
Yeah.
wouldn't be a bad result. But my body shut down at 92 miles because of hydration. That was 100% it. I just couldn't go. My body completely shut down, and it was because I just was completely dehydrated. I mean, my urine was the color of Coke.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a good situation to be in, and so I was like, that's the only thing that
Mm-hmm.
prevented me from taking second place.
Good Lord. I don't think I knew that you were up there until mile 92. Maybe I did at the time. I usually follow the race pretty closely. I follow on Twitter and kind of get the updates, but man, 92 miles and then good Lord. Okay, so we're back for some redemption with some
Yeah,
extra hydrated things happening.
I'll tell you this much. It really sucks when you're laying on the trail, literally can't move because your muscles are completely cramped and they will not function. You're throwing up all over the place. You're dizzy and you just can't even stay on the trail. And you're laying on the side of the trail and you just see, well, there goes third place
Mm.
passing me. There goes fourth place. There goes fifth place. And you can't do anything about it. And then you finally get to the aid station. You walk to the aid station. You have to sit in a chair for almost 2 hours, and you see sixth and seventh place go past you. And then finally, like you get rehydrated and the doctor allows you to leave the aid station. And you're like, well, I'm just gonna walk to the finish line. And yeah, it just was not a good thing because I was sitting there like I can't do nothing, and all these people are passing me. I mean, I'm happy I finished, but
That's
at the same
impressive. Yeah.
time, I need the redemption, and so that's the main goal this year: is to go back to Western States, is to get that redemption and finish those last 8 miles
Mm.
strong.
92 miles. Wow. That's pretty crazy. Well, we can't list like every race you've won because there's like a huge list. I'm looking at your website right now, kind of scrolling through. And rather than reading them off, I guess let's have you say, like, what has been your most meaningful win to date?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Probably Lavaredo, 2018. That was 120 kilometer in the Dolomites in Italy that I had won. It's considered one of the most competitive races in Europe, one of the most competitive races in the world. It's the same weekend as Western States, so it kind of gets overlooked a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But that was probably the most competitive field I've ever been in. And besides maybe UTMB and Western States, possibly. But yeah, I was able to pull out the victory there. And I think why that one means so much to me is it proved to me that I'm good at this 100-kilometer distance and that I can be really good at the long stuff, which I enjoy because it was my second big win. You know, I'd won CCC in 2017 and coming back and be able to win another really big race, you know, was really, you know, solidified that I can do this and gave me a lot of confidence, but also how I fought in that race. It wasn't a perfect day. It was really hard. You know, I fell back into like 8th place with 40K to go.
Wow.
And I was able to go from 8th place to winning by 8 minutes or something in the last 40 kilometers of the race. And just, I fought through a lot of demons. I fought through a lot of really hard moments in that race. And I showed myself that I was capable of pushing myself beyond even I thought possible. And it was definitely a turning point in my career. And it helped me fall in love with the sport even more, fall in love with Europe and fall in love with this racing.
Have you had like mental training to be so tough out there?
Every day when you're training, it's mental training, right?
Yeah.
uh, you know, I don't know. I don't think, I mean, when I grew up, my parents were awesome. I'll
Mm.
just tell you that much. I mean, my dad, he pushed us, you
Mm-hmm.
know, he really, I mean, he was an awesome dad though. He pushed us, but he did it in a very good way. I mean, he let us make decisions and make the choices that we wanted to make. But when he said, he would tell us, you know, you make the decision, you tell me what you want to do. And then when you decide what you want to do, I'm going to be there for you to support you in any way I possibly can. I'm going to push you in that, and you make sure that you dedicate yourself to that, and you do everything you can to be the best that you can once you make that decision. And so my dad was just awesome. I mean, he was my coach growing up. He trained me a lot, you know, throughout my entire life. He taught me how to work hard. He taught me, you know, to never give up and just be tough. And I really look up to my dad for that because, you know, if it wasn't for him, I definitely wouldn't be the person I am today.
Do your siblings run? Do they do sports?
I have one brother,
Okay.
so it's just me and him.
Okay.
He's 3 years younger than me. Yeah, and he runs as well. He's an
Okay.
ultra runner now. He kind of followed in my footsteps, I guess. It's kind of funny. Like before I started running, nobody in my family ran. You know, my dad's not a runner. Like, you know, nobody in my family were runners. And then all of a sudden, like my mom started running, my brother started running. You know, and it's like it's awesome to see. You know, and they both have run ultras now. My mom's done Ironmans,
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
so it's really cool. And me and my brother, we train together, you know, every now and then. He just lives down the road from me, like 30-40 minutes down the highway from me, so we were able to do a lot together. And he's actually a pretty good runner himself. Honestly, I think he's more talented than me.
Uh-oh.
um, yeah, but I mean, he works a lot and he has some other things that he has to do. And but he's a very very talented runner. And yeah, we share that together.
How old was your mom when she did her Ironman? Do you know?
Maybe in her 40s.
That's
Not
so
sure.
cool. It's so cool
Yeah.
when your kids like fall in love with something and then you fall in love with it just from like watching their experience. I remember in high school when I ran cross country, My mom had never run before either, and she worked out though. You know, I remember her doing like lunges in the driveway with her squat bar and things like that, like go into exercise classes. But when I started running cross country, she just like, I don't know, she discovered it herself, and then she ran several marathons. And I think that's such a gift that kids can give their parents.
Yeah, and it's the same way with my mom, exactly what you just said with your mom. It's the same with my mom, and now even my dad. Like my dad doesn't run, but he'll go for hikes,
Mm.
long hikes, or he'll do walks every single day, and it's really cool because it's not only like I mean, it's helping their health, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cool thing. It's probably extended their lives, and that's the cool thing about running. I'll be honest with you, running is has been such a blessing to my family. I mean, it's honestly, I'm so grateful for it. I mean, I get to take my family around the world. My parents have come and supported me in Europe and seen these amazing places. My mom never even left the country
Mm.
until I started running ultra marathons, and then I started racing out in Europe, and she's like, I want to support you. And so she comes out, and I'm able to like support them. They did so much for me growing up that I'm able to help them now, and pay for the housing or something in Europe, and they're able to go and see all these amazing places. And it's all been because of running, because I decided to get into running, and because it's literally changed our lifestyles and helped us and blessed us in so many ways.
That is so cool. Okay, so now that you're a dad, I always like struggle with this with my kids. Like, how much do you push them? You know what I mean? Versus like letting them just explore and be kids. Like, at what age and what point? And I know your kids are still young, but like, I really think about that a lot because the joy that you see someone like you, for instance, like really leaning into their talent and then becoming very successful and having a career out of it, like you want that for your kids if it could be a possibility, no matter what the sport is or what the thing they love is. So your parents obviously did a good job with that. What is your mindset with that as a dad now?
I think, I don't push my kid. I mean, my kids are still pretty
Yeah.
young, but I don't push them to run, like I never bring running up to them. I just bring up key elements like learning moments, if they're having a moment, or there's a learning opportunity, I'll bring stuff up like, about working hard, or, having goals, or, and I think the other thing that we try to do is we try to go outdoors as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible. We like to go hiking as a family. We do rock climbing as a family. We do all these little things. When we're out living in Europe or in Chamonix, we go and pick berries up in the mountains, and spend the entire day out in the mountains. And it's just teaching our kids to love the outdoors, teaching our kids to love being active, to love doing things, and not just sitting inside and watching TV all day or playing video games or different things like that. And I think if you can teach your kids these little key elements like that, they'll probably gravitate more towards the things that are going to help them in their lives most. And maybe they'll end up being runners. And if that's the case, I would love that. But if not, it is what it is. And I just hope that they'll be successful human beings, and that they'll help other people, and that they'll be a positive influence in this world. And if that's all that they are, that's all that matters to me. And I just want to teach them the key elements that I think are important.
Yeah, I love that. Work hard, help other people. You know, I know, and that's the other thing is like teaching them. And your kids are still super young. Is your oldest 4?
Yeah, he turns 5 this year.
Okay, are you guys gonna homeschool or what are you gonna do? Because do they travel around to races with you?
Yeah, I mean, he'll start pre or kindergarten next year, so
Okay,
2023. So we've kind of wanted to take advantage of the time, where we can kind of travel a little bit more. And so yeah, we do travel. We usually spend our summers in Europe. This year we're going to spend 4 or 5 months out in Europe.
cool.
And we bring our kids with us.
Yeah.
I've always said this, like, if I get these experiences, I want to share them with my family,
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be gone for 4 or 5 months, racing in Europe and be alone out there by myself. Like, I want to bring my family with me. And so we go out there, we have fun. We usually put our kids, like last year, we put our son in a little summer camp out there where he's still getting educated. He's still learning things out in Europe, in France. And and he gets to have these experiences as well. And so, yeah, we're not going to homeschool. Like we'll start kindergarten and he'll go to school. But we're actually thinking about maybe making a little bit of a move before that happens. So
Is that some like move where?
to Europe.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, full time. We've been really,
Really?
yeah, we've been really contemplating it. A lot of the races I do are in Europe. We love Europe. We love the lifestyle.
Wow.
Um, we think it would be awesome to have an experience with the family, living out there for a few years. Our kids would come back fluent in French or
Totally.
Italian or whatever, wherever we're living. And we just think like now's the time, because before my son starts school, we kind of have to make that choice. And I foresee myself running big mountain ultras in the near and far future. And the best place to train and race for those is in Europe.
Do it. Yes, that sounds amazing. I think that is the coolest experience you could ever give your kids. That is so freaking cool. And if you move back to the States when your kid's in like second grade or third grade, it's fine.
Yeah, and I
They'll
only have,
adjust.
a small amount of time to do this, like I'm in my prime right now, and now's the time that I want to take advantage of that and really go all in and do what I need to do. And I feel like this move could really
Mm-hmm.
do amazing things for my career, and also just help my family grow and help my kids have these experiences. And to be 100% honest with you, we're going to do it. I know I've been kind of wishy-washy,
Maybe.
but we've already planned it. We've already got it all planned out. We've committed. We're moving to Europe in the beginning of 2023,
Okay.
as long as we can get a visa and as long as everything works out. That is the plan right now.
Are you announcing that on this podcast? Does the world know?
I don't think everybody knows. I've talked to a few people about it, but I've never posted about it or anything. But yeah, I guess I'm kind of announcing it. You kind of brought it out. So
we're
no,
going out
it's
on
not
Friday.
yeah, it's not a big deal. I mean, yeah, we're gonna do it. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I don't think we'll live there forever. I
Yeah.
think we'll spend, at least 4 years out there, maybe a little bit longer. And then we'll come back to the States at some point.
Maybe boring question and we'll move on. Are you selling your house? What does that look like?
We'll probably rent our house
Rent
is
it
what we're
out.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
nice.
We're in a pretty good situation here, and
Yeah.
we plan on coming back to this area.
Uh-huh.
This is where our family is, and we love it here. But yeah, we'll probably end up doing that.
Yeah, that's smart. Good. Okay, so Western States, we're going back for redemption. You're going back to UTMB. And then I don't know about this October race. I'm not like super well versed in the ultra scene. Tell us about the October race.
Yeah, well, so I'm not running the actual UTMB, the
Oh, the
100
CCC.
miler.
Yes,
Yeah,
CCC.
I'm running
Sorry.
CCC, the 100K. So I'm going back to that,
Yeah.
which I just felt like the Western States UTMB double is the 200s, within 8 weeks is really tough double. But I think the Western States CCC double is possible. But I will commit to going back to the UTMB, the 100-mile race in 2023 is the plan, and giving full board into that. But this year, it's full board going into Western States. That's my A race, my A plus race, whatever you want
Okay.
to call it. And then, yeah, the other race is La Templier in
Mm-hmm.
October. It's in France as well. It's in October. So the thought behind that is, of course, we just talked about moving to Europe. We want to go and check out some places that we're contemplating moving to.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to do some little training camps out there, fill it out, see where we want to go. And then I'm going to finish our travel out there with this race, La Templier. If people don't know about La Templier, it is one of the most competitive, and I think it's actually the biggest number-wise ultra marathon in Europe. It's one of the oldest as well. It's been going on forever. Um, it's an 80 kilometer, so a 50-mile race out there in Europe, and really, really competitive. Hoka sponsors it, so that helps me as well as a
Mm-hmm.
Hoka athlete. But yeah, it's a race I've always wanted to do. It's a more runnable course for European standards, but from what I've heard, it's an awesome experience. Some of the best ultra runners of all time have gone out and ran it and have won it. It's just not on the radar of a lot of Americans just because it's kind of a late season race. Most people kind of look at UTMB as like
Mm-hmm.
the end. But yeah, La Templier is probably top 3 most competitive races in Europe. And it's an awesome race that I'm excited to do in October.
Do you love your life?
Yeah, I mean, I I'm very grateful for my
Yeah.
life, I would say. Um, Very humbled with, what I'm able to do. I know everybody doesn't get these opportunities, and there's a lot of people out there that are definitely less fortunate than me, and I that's why I feel very grateful. I feel very, very blessed, and I think that yes, I've made a lot of good choices in my life to get me to this point, and I've worked really hard to get to this point, but there's also been a lot of luck involved, and I will forever be grateful for my sponsors, for my family, for my friends, for everybody that's made this possible.
That's so great. Um, how long have you been sponsored by Hoka?
So after Speedgoat in 2016, I picked up the sponsor with
Okay.
Hoka. Yeah, Hoka sponsored Speedgoat as well, and so
Okay.
they saw me, after I'd won that race, and they picked me up. I ran for Hoka from 2016 to 2019,
Okay.
and then I actually switched sponsors for about a year and a half. I went to Ultra 2019 through 20, a little bit into 2020, and then I switched back to Hoka 2020 to present now.
Okay. I don't know that I've ever talked to someone that's done that before. Like gone left a sponsor for a short period of time and then gone back to that sponsor. Was that complicated?
Yeah, it was a tad bit, not
Yeah.
too bad. Um, to be honest with you, both sponsors were amazing, and they've been really easy to work with, and I'm very grateful for both sponsors, for Hoka and Ultra. It all came down to um, like a product
Mm,
thing.
sure.
It wasn't that I didn't like Ultra. I liked the company. They're a great company, and the product works for many, many people. It just didn't work for me. I couldn't run in the shoes. I
Mm,
kept getting injured. I kept having problems with the shoes. And I just had to go back to Hoka because I have been healthy. I've had just amazing races, great training with Hokas, and Hoka just work for me. They really work for me with my biomechanics, with my stride, with everything that I'm doing, and I love Hoka. I love the people. It's a family. It's an amazing company to run for, and I love what they're doing in the sport. They're putting so much into the sport. They're helping grow the sport, and it's just an amazing company to be a part of. And most importantly, the product works for me, and that's the biggest thing. Is like if I want a long career, if I want to win races, I have to be running in a product that works for me because if I'm injured all the time, I'm never going to progress. I'm never going to win. And so that's the sole reason that I went back to Hoka, and I plan on staying with Hoka for the rest of my career if they'll have me.
oh, that's so good. The I'm probably gonna say it wrong. The is it the Mach 4 MACH?
Yeah, the Mach 4, the road shoe.
Those are my favorite running shoes I've ever run in.
That's my favorite road shoe as well. When I do stuff on the roads or runnable trail, I'll be in the Mach 4 as well. That's my go-to. And then when I'm out on the trails, I really like the Speedgoat, the new Speedgoat 5. I'm actually testing out the new Speedgoat 5, and I'm testing out the new Tecton X. And I'll tell you, those shoes are money. They are amazing. The upgrades on them are just spot on. And I've been training in those recently, and man, I just really, really love those shoes. But yeah, I'm a Speedgoat guy when it comes to the trails, and a Mock guy when it comes to the roads.
They're just so comfortable. I feel like, and I actually, my Achilles has been bugging me lately, and I just ordered a new pair of those because I was like, I got to go back to those shoes because I feel like my body just received my running a lot better when I wore them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big. I'm a pretty high volume guy.
Yeah.
I do quite a bit of training, and to have that little extra cushion,
Uh-huh.
and it really helps a ton. Like I feel like I can handle more training load when I'm wearing Hokas, and I just yeah, I everything about them is just perfect for my, like I said, my foot strike, my biomechanics, how I recover with the shoes, especially with ultra running. When you're out there for 20 plus hours, it's nice to have a little cushion, to be honest with you.
Okay, before we wrap up with Into Podcasts, which we're going to do very soon, tell us, like, I know you mentioned you listen to podcasts when you run. Do you listen to music? Do you go solo? Do you spend time like meditating, praying, thinking when you're in the mountains? That you spend so many hours in the mountains. There's a lot to do with your head during those times.
A little bit of everything you mentioned, to be honest with you. It kind of depends on what part of the race or like what I'm doing. If I'm going really hard in a workout where I'm really not going to be able to like think much because
Mm-hmm.
I'm going hard, or like I'm not going to be able to really take in all the views, I'll put some headphones in. I'll listen to some music. I'll listen to a podcast, just because I'm really trying to get into that zone and just push myself. And I feel like a little bit of music helps with that.
Mm.
It takes my mind off of the pain a little bit, and it helps me just be able to push a little bit harder. If I'm running an ultra where I'm running through the night, I'm not seeing much. Like I'm in tunnel vision. I have my headlamp on and I'm just looking straight ahead, trying not to fall. I'll throw in some music, and it helps me get through the night, especially when you start getting sleepy and you're just like, man, I don't, I like my brain's just not working properly. You listen to a little bit of music or a podcast, and it can help you get through a lot of those night runs or night races. And so, yeah, I'll listen to music at points like that. I mean, if I'm on top of a peak, doing an easy day where I'm just wanting to really enjoy the sounds of nature, meditate a little bit, pray a little bit, then I won't put the headphones on, and I'll take the time to really just think and contemplate. And so it just depends on the training I'm doing for the day and how I feel. But yeah, I do a little bit of both.
All right. Well, I guess we have to wrap up with Into Podcast. I know if anybody's a big fan of ultra running, they're probably like, you glazed over so many big races that he has won or, had course records in, but there's only so much we can get to in the hour we talk. So, I have like in my notes, the JFK 50 miler and the course record you set there. And there's so many other races, but, it's been an honor to just hear a little snippet of some of the most important races and to hear about what's on your schedule for this year.
Yeah, like you said before, I'm taking the less is more approach this year. I've been known as racing a lot, in the past. Like I've done years where I've done 12 to 15 races in a year,
Wow.
and that's just too much. And
Yeah.
while looking back, I wouldn't have changed it because I gained a lot of experience that's helping me now. Um, I'm getting to the point in my career now where I really want to focus on the big ones and making sure I'm ready for each one of the big ones, because I want to win the big ones,
Mm-hmm.
like the Western States and the UTMBs and stuff like that. And so I know to win those, I have to be dialed in, and I have to be fresh. I have to be healthy, and I can't do that racing 12 times a year. I can do that racing 4 or 5 times a year. And so that's what I'm going to focus on for the rest of my career, is racing less, being able to train a little bit harder, and just really dial in and be ready for the big ones and be ready when it counts.
It's going to be really exciting to see what you do at Western States.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, that's the one I'm going for this year. So.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right. What's something professionally or personally that you would like to do that you haven't done yet? Win Western States.
Yeah, besides win Western States, I think we've already talked about it in the podcast. I'd like to move to Europe
Mm.
and experience that and that lifestyle. And I would also like learn how to ski-mow while I'm out there. Learn how to climb big mountains while I'm out there. Do some like some mountaineering type stuff. And my career, I'd like to win UTMB.
100. The real UTMB.
Yeah, the big one. That's kind of that's our World Series. I mean, that's our big boy. I mean, the UTMB is the championship.
It's the championship. Yeah, and I make that distinction because we do have ultra runners that listen, but even when I first started interviewing ultra runners, I didn't know the like difference between UTMB and CCC, like the different races of the weekend. So UTMB is the 100 mile, that's the big dog championship, but the same weekend there's the 100K, which is CCC, correct?
Yeah, and there's also OCC, which is 50K.
Okay.
And those are all championships now. Like there's this new series called the UTMB World Series that's going on, and UTMB 100 mile is the 100-mile World Championship. CCC 100K is the 100K World Championship, and OCC 50K is the 50K World Championship. So if you win one of those races, you're considered a world champion now in those respected distances. But UTMB is the biggest. I mean,
King.
it is the king, and that's the one everybody wants to win. The two biggest races in the world, if you're not familiar with ultra running, are UTMB and Western States. Those are the ones. Those are like winning Boston Marathon or New York Marathon or London, whatever road runners consider the two biggest marathons in the world. That UTMB and Western States are our two biggest majors.
Yeah, I mean, you have the marathon majors. I don't know what's the pinnacle. I mean, I would put New York over Chicago, but I don't know why, really. Like New York and London, I guess would be the two that I would choose. No, I guess New York and Boston. I don't know.
I would probably choose Boston and London because
Okay,
you kind of need one on each side of the world, I
sure.
would say.
Yeah.
And I think London is definitely the biggest one in Europe.
Uh huh.
And I would say Boston's definitely the
Yeah.
biggest one in the US. So I would say Boston's like Western States and London's like UTMB.
Okay, there we have it. We just made that. We just made it. Um, we didn't talk about your coach, David Roach. Are you still working with David Roach?
No, so I'm actually not with David
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm with a new coach.
I can
His
cut
name's
that.
Robbie Britton,
Okay.
and yeah, he's a British guy. He lives in Italy. I switched over to him a couple of years or about a year and a half ago, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I can scrap that. Um,
Okay.
okay, so we're moving to London or we're moving to Europe. We're going to win Western States. We're going to win in 2023 UTMB. Okay, those are the big things, right?
Yeah, that's the plan, and so hopefully that works out. It I don't know if I mean I mean this year, yes, Western States, I know I can win it, and that's the plan. UTMB, I plan on going out there and winning it in 2023, but it might take a couple of years, and so that's why I'm giving myself a little cushion moving out to Europe and making sure I dial in things.
That's awesome. What's the best, most recent book you've read?
Probably I have a really good friend in the ultra running world named Hillary Allen.
Oh, yeah.
She just read a book or wrote a book called Out and Back. It's an awesome book. Definitely recommend it if you want a good motivational book and something that will maybe motivate you to get into some more trails too.
I've heard really good things about that book. Who's someone fun, motivating, or inspiring that you would like to have coffee, tea, or cocktail with?
So I'm a big cyclist. I do a lot of cycling in my training. I'm a big cycling fan. I'm really actually excited to move to Europe so I can take part and watch more of like the Tour de France and the
Mm-hmm.
Giro and some of these big cycling tours out in Europe. One of my favorite cyclists of all time is a guy named Mark Cavendish.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
Um,
of him.
yes, he's a British cyclist. one of the best, if not the best cyclist ever. He's got more, I think he tied the stage win record this year. And he'll probably come back this year and try to beat that stage win record. But I like Mark just because he's a very humble guy, it seems like, too. Very level-headed, down to earth. He's got a family. He's a father. And all those little elements mean a lot to me because I feel like I could learn a lot from him. And so the dream would be to go and do a ride with him, maybe in the Alps somewhere.
Oh.
And we could stop at a coffee shop and talk a little bit and then continue our ride.
See, I love when people say yes, or people answer this question with kind of a big dream person, but it's doable. You can make that happen.
Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to him and see if
you
he'll
should.
do it. But,
you totally should.
He's definitely a big name, and so
give him your credentials. You won CCC. Just in the email, list all the ultras that you have won.
Maybe I'll make a sign and be out at the tour I love you, Mark Cavendish. Will you have coffee with me? No,
I'm a serious athlete too.
Yeah. No. He just seems like a really cool guy, and I really respect him as a rider and as an athlete and as a person.
Okay, let me ask you just a quick question about that though, because ever since the whole Lance Armstrong thing, I am just jaded with cycling, and I don't want to be. And anytime someone gets popped for doping with running as well, I get jaded. I'm like, oh, who's not doping? You know what I mean? So how do you not get jaded with cycling?
I just don't worry about it too much in general. I mean, you can't sit here and think about that too much.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening in every sport. I know personally I'm not doing it, and so I have nothing to worry about. I'm going to go out there and do the best that I can with the body that I've been given, and that's all that I can do. I can't sit here and dwell on it and worry about it because it would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that they worry so much about it. They think so much about it. I'll stand up against it when I need to, but I don't need to sit here and worry about it because like I said, I know a lot of people that have worried so much about it that it's driven them into doing it because they're just like, there's no other way. And it's like, yes, there is another way. You don't have to do it. And yes, while it's happening, I like to, say innocent till proven guilty.
Sure.
And not think too much into it.
Yeah. No, that's a healthy perspective. What is our last question here? Oh yeah. What is your last message to leave with our audience today?
I talked about this earlier, but it's something I've been really focusing on. It's the importance of controlling what you can control, and I feel like, especially in the world that we live in right now with so much uncertainties with COVID and everything else, I think if you dwell too much on the things that you can't control, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to stress yourself out, and you're not going to be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish. But if you can focus on what you can control and try to be the best at those things, then it reduces a lot of stress in your life, and it makes you a better person. And you're able to help more people. You're able to accomplish more things, achieve more dreams, and reach more goals. And that's one thing that I've been focusing on is compartmentalizing. Focusing on one race at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. Trying to be the best father when I need to be the best father. Trying to be the best husband when I need to be the best husband, the best athlete when I need to be the best athlete, and not sitting here and dwelling on the things that I can't control. I've had issues with that in the past. I think all of us have, especially in 2020 when, the world was locked down, and it just wasn't healthy to be that way. And so as I've shifted that focus and changed my mindset about things, I'm just a way better person, and I'm so much more happier, and I'm healthier because of that mindset shift.
That is a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. And thanks for having me on. And I wish everyone luck in their 2022 goals.